Welcome, everybody. This is another training session, a live webinar. Well, it's live for us right now, and we're thrilled to have an awesome guest and a fantastic topic. So I just want to be able to jump right in. Of course, we have our one and only DTG expert, Mr. Terry Combs. But Terry, it's really not about you, and it's not about me. It's about Paul. Do I say your name Zingone? Zingone?
Zingone.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
You told me last time, Zingone. Paul from Vastex. Paul, thank you. How are you, Paul?
I'm good. It's good to be here, get to talk direct to garment and especially conveyor dryers with you.
Yes, and I look behind you and I see a nice big dryer. You're in the right place. Look at that.
That's a Little Red X3D behind me.
Awesome. Well, listen, this is a topic that comes up a lot. So I know Terry is excited. It was so fun this morning. I had the guys come in and say, hey, will you ask Paul this? So when our own team is excited about the topic and trying to get me to ask you questions, I was like, yeah, we could probably sneak that in. So don't be surprised if I throw a few bonus questions or Terry throws a few bonus questions in. But yeah, we're excited to have you. This is a great topic. Terry, what do you think? What's on your mind this morning?
Well, Paul is obviously from Vastex, and we are selling more and more conveyor dryers. It's when I first started selling DTG printers, it was all heat press, and there's more and more conversation about conveyor dryers. So the perfect opportunity today for our customers and our potential customers and DTG owners out there to find out about how conveyor dryers work with our process.
Exactly. And Paul, don't be surprised. The title of our session is "Which dryer is right for me?" Because we pretty much get that question. And I know both of you recently returned from the Impressions Expo show in Atlantic City. So imagine our opportunity here is to extend that trade show a little bit and talk specifically about dryers. Terry, you know better than I do that it seems like the demand is up, more questions are up, and people are really trying to figure this out. So I think the topic is timely. And could we have a better expert? I don't think so.
Absolutely.
Well, excellent. So what I've done is I pulled together a few of the questions, and Paul's ready, but we also will probably have a few that pop up live. So folks, if you're watching live, we'll try to get through the content. You're welcome to chat. That's why we have Tim in the chat. If he can answer the question, he will. If it's something that we all three think is, hey, let's talk about that, we'll deviate. We're in charge, Terry. I mean, we can pretty much do what we want within reason.
Don't attempt to adjust your television.
Paul, how long have you been at Vastex? You seem like ever since I've known Vastex, I've seen you. So you've been there a while.
Yeah, I have. I hit 10 years this year. So
wow,
a full decade at Vastex so far.
Oh,
I'm looking forward to the next 10 years, but it's amazing to see the change. I mean, just in that 10 years, go from really screen printing, and within my time there, direct to garment has become what it is today. And even a few years ago, conveyor dryers weren't a thing for direct to garment. So right. It's amazing to see the changes going on, especially in the past few years.
True that.
I agree with that. Yep.
Yeah, we've seen the same thing, obviously, and we're a proud representative of Vastex. It's the only dryer that we have. It's the only dryer. It's the only relationship that we want, really, quite frankly, because they're made here in the U.S. and we have such a great relationship with you and your team. And we know that you're a phone call away. Truly, it's part of our service after the sale. Honestly, is as important as the sale. So if we're not careful, we paint ourselves into a corner. Luckily, Terry and I are just smart enough to have you on so that doesn't happen.
I hope so.
Well, Paul, our goal here today is to review some of the common questions that we get about the various conveyor dryers and some of the options. We hope that you'll teach us a little bit more about the do's and the don'ts, specifically for apparel decorators. And we seem to feel like that person that has 1 foot on the dock and 1 foot on the boat, and the boat's starting to drift just a little bit. And you were like, we want to make sure that we don't, tell screen printers the wrong thing. But at the same time, we have this up and coming wave of direct-to-garment printers. Both are apparel decorators. And so I just really think this is going to be a great conversation. I'm super excited about it. And I get to ask the first question. Terry, See how that works?
You're in charge, man. Let's
Well, Paul, we prepared 5 questions ahead of time. And so if you're okay with that, I'd love to jump in now and
Sure.
and hit you up with the first one. The first one is pretty much basic question, but is a conveyor dryer better than a heat press when it comes to curing DTG prints?
So the big thing with a heat press versus a conveyor dryer is the noticeable difference that you get on the final product. That's where we get people saying, I want a retail ready shirt. I don't like the platen box around it. That's where conveyor dryers really come into play, and that's where they really shine. So instead of physically pressing down on it, you mat down the design, you get that shiny, glossy, vinyl-y heat press look. You can avoid that with the conveyor dryer because there is no pressure on it. So in the end, you get a little bit more of a screen printed feel. On top of that, you don't get the dreaded platen mark from the heat press, since you're obviously not touching the shirt, not touching the ink. It doesn't mute the colors because, again, with the pressure, you mute the colors a little bit. You can lose a little detail as well on some really fine detailed prints. Those are the main visible things that you get with the conveyor dryer. On top of that, it's the ease of use of taking a shirt off the printer, putting it on the dryer, and guess what? You go to your next shirt, you load your next shirt, you worry about that, and now it's a set it and forget it. You put the shirt on the dryer and let it go. The biggest thing is getting it set up, making sure all your times are good. But once you do that, it's really shirt on the dryer, let it fall at the end. If you have somebody folding, let them fold the shirt, it's ready to go.
Gotcha. So I'm not surprised, Terry, that the guy in charge of dryers is going to say things like, yeah, we like the dryer better.
Well, and the important thing is if you're choosing to use a heat press, you'll get a cured shirt. You're going to get the same washability, but Paul's correct. There will be a difference in the look of the garment once it comes off the belt or comes off the heat press. So, but Jay, you're talking about the trade show, and Paul and I were both in Atlantic City. This is a question you get at a trade show, or a comment you get at a trade show, and plus we get it on the phone all the time. My buddy used to be a screen printer, so he's selling me his conveyor dryer to use with my new Epson DTG printer. So when does that work, or when does that not work, Paul?
All right, so it's a mixed bag with a lot of people. Say, oh, any dryer will work, I just need heat. There are some things we built into our DTG specific dryers that just aren't in our screen printing dryers. The biggest thing is, and I actually have my handy guide here because this will actually show what I'm talking about a little bit easier. We have a dual zone heater. So we have what we call our boost zone, which is the first little bit of the dryer that gets it up to temperature really quick, gets your ink up to that 310, 320 degrees. And then our second zone is the other 90% of the dryer to get that dwell time. So I should have sent you some stuff so you can bring it up, but you can actually kind of see here. What we do is this sharp increase there. That's that boost heater. That's within the first 45 to 60 seconds. Once it gets there, you see that straight line. That's where we level off that temperature. So this is actually mimicking really what you get out of a heat press, where you get that quick climb and then you can hold it. Without that, what you'll do is start at room temperature and slowly climb until you get to your temperature, probably just as you're leaving the dryer. If you're doing that, you don't have that extended dwell time to really get that good cure that you're looking for.
Paul,
well, you said something.
Hold on. Sorry, Terry, I didn't mean to jump across you, but I'm going to pull up that graphic. I have one. I just didn't know if it was the correct. I don't know to which dryer it would associate with. So, but this was what you were more or less trying to show. Is that right?
Yep, that's it. Yeah, let me see. That is, so that's a Little Red X3D. So you can see the 3 heating elements. Where you have those knobs there, that's actually 3 separate heaters that are all independently adjustable. So the adjustability is amazing, how you can set your boost zone, set your second zone, and then have these 3 heaters that You can put the one in the middle a little lower if you need to, raise it up and really get it dialed in. And we'll talk about how we get that dialed in a little bit, because I know that's the main question we get is, how do you figure out what those times and temperatures are, where we want all of our heaters? So we'll make sure we talk about that as well.
Yeah, Paul, you said something really interesting when you said our DTG specific dryers, because many of those dryers that your buddy who is a screen printer might be using are for curing plastisol ink, which is entirely different than a water-based DTG ink.
Yeah, and when you're curing plastisol, you're 25, 30 seconds through the dryer. So you're in there quick and you just need to get it to temperature. So as long as the ink hits 320 degrees, it's cured. Direct to garment, you want to hit 320, but you want it at 320 for 2 minutes, minute and a half to really get that full cure. So that's the big difference there. That's why we need those extra adjustments that you just normally don't get. But just going back to, I say DTG specific, but that doesn't mean it doesn't work for screen printing inks as well. All of our dryers that are made for DTG will work for water-based and discharge actually really well, and also for plastisol, except one dryer that we just came out with. Our low E dryer is brand new. It's a lower energy, so lower energy consumption, but that's really mainly for direct to garment. It's a lower wattage heater, so not the best for plastisol, but it's a monster dryer for DTG and at a much lower wattage, lower amperage than we're used to with these dryers.
Well, and along those lines, Jay, question number 3.
Yes.
Something else we hear: you must have forced air to cure water-based DTG ink. And Paul, you were on a panel on my podcast, Two Regular Guys, once, and another manufacturer was there and said those words. And then what was your response to that?
So we get that a lot. And we've been hearing it for years, even with water-based screen printing ink, is you have to have forced air. Forced air is only good if you superheat that forced air to that 320 degrees, what you need. With infrared heaters, if you're forcing air through, you're actually pushing it through the heater. And now that heat, that air that was 400, 500 degrees, by the time it gets to the shirt, it's 200 degrees. It's similar to putting a fan on a pot of boiling water. If you're trying to boil it and you put direct air on it that's room temperature or slightly above it, you'll actually slow down that process, because what do we want to do? We want to evaporate that moisture out of the shirt. So unless you're superheating that airflow coming in, it actually will slow you down. The big thing that we build into our dryers is powered exhaust. So we do want movement of air. We just do it in the opposite direction to help that moisture that's in the shirt, helps it evaporate out.
That's the absolute best description of this I've ever heard. So kudos.
And Paul, I want you to know, I second that. And Terry's been doing this for more than a few weeks. So
I have.
That's great to hear.
No, but it comes up a lot. It's interesting. I don't know. Is that Terry? Do you think that's just a legacy situation? Like this is what we've always done?
I think it is. I think it's poor information passed on and passed down and passed on, because it's just an assumption that moving air through is going to help evaporate the water. But Paul explained it beautifully there. It's not just air.
Yeah, and we actually learned that by accident years ago, because we did have forced air in our dryers. My personal screen printing shop that I own, the dryer in my shop has forced air because I use it for water-based inks. At one point, we realized, I think at one of our classes, that they forgot to turn on the forced air on the dryer, and realized, oh, these shirts with water-based ink are curing a lot faster and a lot better than they did before. When we looked at it, we realized, oh, we're not cooling the shirt off as it's going through the dryer. We're actually taking that moisture and taking it out of the dryer and moving it and taking it out of the building.
Light bulbs popping up above everyone's heads at that moment.
Oh, that makes sense.
It does make sense. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I love that answer too. Okay, so it's up to me. Question number 4. It looks like we're going to have time for some bonus questions, so I am just going to warn you now. but we were ready for that. Question number 4 is really that's transition. So we know that we're never going to truly get away from the heat press. There will always be a reason to have it. And I think most of our customers will still have it and use it for sure. However, the question that I think we get a lot that maybe you could shed some light on to, Paul, is when is it a good time? Like, what are the indicators? How might I know that this is a good time for me to start to consider to make this decision to move to a dryer?
Sure. And just to piggyback off your point about we'll never get away from heat presses, I always tell people, keep your heat press. Don't throw it away. Don't think I have this conveyor dryer, that's all I need, because we do like to mat the fibers down after our pre-treat. Even if we run our pre-treat through our conveyor dryer, which you can do, it is still nice to kiss it with the heat press for a couple seconds, mat those fibers down for a nice smooth surface to print on. But onto the real question, the real answer, there's really not a bad time to switch over to a conveyor dryer. You don't necessarily have to be doing 1,000 shirts a week to be able to find it necessary, because we have small conveyor dryers that do work well. They pair up with your single DTG printer. So everything from your single DTG printer on up to dozens, we can actually make a dryer that will work for that. And the coolest thing is the modular design of the dryers. You can get a small conveyor dryer for your Epson 2100. Now you say it keeps up with that, but you know what? Business is taking off. I want to get another 2100. I want to get a couple of 3070s and really start to expand your DTG business. You can actually add chambers onto your dryer, add conveyor lengths. So now that small dryer that's maybe 18 inches, your chamber's 18 inches, you can put another chamber. You can put one of these chambers back here on top of that little one that you had before. So if you start from the beginning, you can kind of just keep adding on until really you run out of room in your building. That's that's the biggest thing. You can go, until you run out of electricity and run out of room.
Paul, I'll give you a real life example of a dryer that you guys placed for us. We have a client here in the western part of the country who started with one printer and then he added another one. When he added 2 more to get 4, that's when he bought his first conveyor dryer, his Vastex dryer. And then he bought a couple more printers and then he added length to that dryer. And then he bought 5 more printers and then he added an additional dryer. And then so on until he has 2 very long Vastex dryers and a dozen F2100s. So, that's the beauty of the modular system.
Yeah, and we love when we see additional chambers go out, because that means a company's expanding. They're doing well. They're getting more business. So for us, it's exciting to make a sale, but it's even more exciting to see, like, you know what, this customer is doing really well. They're growing, and we're seeing so much of that right now too.
Love that.
Well, and maybe this is the same question, but question number 5 on our list of 5 is a consideration for buying the right dryer is throughput. So talk to us a little bit about throughput and planning for future needs.
Sure. Throughput, a big thing is depending on obviously what you need now, what you may need in the future. When considering a dryer, I always say, look at your width first, because we can always go longer with the dryer. But if you get a 30-inch wide or a 54-inch or a 78-inch, it can't get wider unless you buy another dryer and put it next to it. So if you really think you want to do huge prints, you want to get a large enough DTG to print on towels or larger items, I'd say get a 54-inch wide, because you have that width there available to you. Or you can do multiple rows through. Normally on a 54-inch wide, you'll do 2 shirts side by side, where we get a lot of people where they'll have a 54-inch wide dryer in the middle and then 1 printer on each side or 2 printers on each side. So now they have individual rows of maybe different designs that they're doing, so they can keep them separate when they fall at the end of the dryer as well.
Well, in buying for growth, and no matter what type of decoration, I always tell people, think towards the future, because if your business, and hopefully, you're planning for success, you have to plan for additional printing devices. And that's an excellent example, starting with a 54-inch wide dryer, because also depending on your space, that 54-inch wide dryer can be a little shorter as well, because you can put their shirts side by side.
That's correct. Yeah, and then space is huge. If you have if your shop looks like a bowling alley and you have as much length as you need, you can go long. But if it's more of a square, it's a little shorter where you have that dryer. Maybe you want to go wider. We have 78-inch wide dryers that you can go short and still have really good production through those, because now you're 3 rows through. The big red 54, now we have side heaters on it, so we can actually get 3 rows through that 54-inch wide dryer, because we have edge to edge heating on that big red now.
That's awesome. I did not know that. So
that's a big deal. I was just going to say,
we're all learning here today.
This has been a productive
we wanted
webinar.
To find that out ourselves.
That's fantastic. Well, listen, I think that you have answered the core questions, but our good friend Tim Allen, who's monitoring the chat, before I came on, he's like, Jay, be sure to ask this. So I didn't type this question out ahead of time, but I have it here in my notes. And I think this will really help a lot of the folks that have tuned in, watching live today, and even those that are going to watch us later on our YouTube channel. We're wondering, from your side of the street, Paul, if you could give us some indicators, like what are the 2 or 3, maybe it's 4 things, I don't know what the number is, but what are the indicators that a buyer, when they're looking at dryers, what should I be looking for? So I know there are other manufacturers, and I'm not going to name them, but if our customers are out there in the wild, they're being told all kinds of things from sales reps, because sales reps. So what should they really kind of look for? What should they be asking, or what should they be pointing or focused on?
See, that's a tougher one. I mean, my big thing is, if you plan on doing this for more than a year, more than 3 years, look at warranty. You always want to make sure you have a dryer that will last and keep up over time.
Love that.
That's one thing. We have a 3-year warranty on our entire dryer, all the controls, the exhaust fans, but we do 15 years on the heating element. So that main part of your dryer, that heating element, you're good for 15 years on that. Everything is, if anything goes wrong, you call us. It's mostly user serviceable. You can get an electrician in there to fix just about anything on these dryers. So you're not waiting months for somebody to get in and swap out a relay for you. So we make it very easy to be able to fix these on the off chance they do break down, because that's
sure. It's a machine.
That's the main thing. You want to keep running.
Well, we all know, we've all been around production environments. You can only, you can't foresee the unforeseeable. You don't know something's going to happen. And things do break. And I love that you said that those are 2 really powerful things. So if you said warranty, check out the warranties, make sure you know what's really in that fine print, what's really covered and for how long. And then you said it's easy to fix. So let's talk about that for a minute. Let's say something does happen. Our customers are probably going to check in with us first, because that's what we're training them to do. But we know that we can lean on you, because you guys are A, the manufacturer, and B, the experts. Plus we like you. So when they call you, what are they going to see? When you say it's easy to fix, are you going to like coach them through the process? Are you going to send them parts? What does that look like?
All right. So if you do have a problem, we do have our tech support. We have great electrical tech support here. You'll actually go online. We do have a spot on our website in our manuals and spec section where you can submit a ticket for tech support. They'll see it right away. They'll be able to give you a call back and walk you through that. We'll go through our usual checks of look at the lights, the relay lights, see if they're going on and off. We'll be able to diagnose what's going on. Mm-hmm. Once we do diagnose what the problem is, we can send the parts out for you. And we're in Pennsylvania. Let's say you have somebody in North Dakota and there's nobody around, but they can get somebody, a licensed electrician. When you look at the control panels on these things, especially the big reds, it's like a work of art. It's so clean in there, and everything is labeled, and it's so nice that if you can read a wiring diagram, you could fix these dryers with our help. It's pretty simple.
I love that.
We can get you up and running a lot quicker.
So I'm not surprised, Terry. These were the three answers he gave me, and I even wrote them down for those of you at home. Warranty, easy to fix, excellent tech support. I mean, does it get better than that? Those are the things that we're going to be most concerned about, especially a rookie like me who has no business being around anything electrical.
Well, and this is, and that just shows also that it's a long-term purchase. So when you're looking at the price of a dryer, then you can say, oh, over the next 15 or 20 years, I'm going to have this dryer on my floor. So all of a sudden, the price is far less than shopping for price only, and then 3 years down the road having to replace that piece of equipment.
And I like to use myself as an example just because it's easy for me. I mean, I owned a shop. I was a Vastex customer before I started working here. My conveyor dryer for screen printing is 2009. I bought it. So it's 13 years old. It runs like the day I got it. I've never had a problem with it. I've never replaced anything on it. I know that's obviously not the case because not everybody has that, but I know the longevity just personally. In Atlantic City, at the Atlantic City show, we had a customer come up that has a 40-year-old conveyor dryer that's still running.
Wow.
So it's great to hear that. I mean, we've replaced some heating elements and controllers and motors along the way, but at 40 years, your cost to own is pretty low when you kind of figure out your yearly cost. But
that dryer
not
is
a
paid.
one-time thing.
Yeah, it's paid for itself at some point in time prior to when he walked into your booth.
A couple of times.
You'd love to hear those stories, though.
We hear it all the time, and it's great because we've been around since 1960, and I haven't been here for that long, obviously, but we've been in business. I know Equipment Zone, you guys have been with us since the early days too. So we have that long relationship, but some of those might be dryers that you guys sold years ago. These ones 30, 40 years old in the field.
Yeah. And it's nice to be able to say to a customer, you can have confidence in this product because you guys make a great product there, whether it's dryers or screen printing equipment, it's all built to last for many, many years. And that's what most customers are looking for. So
no, definitely.
For sure. Paul, before Terry, just a second, before we get, were you going to bring up the chat? Because there's a great question.
I was not. I was going to ask Roy's question. So go ahead.
Oh, okay. Then you ask Roy's question as soon as we're done, because I think they go hand in hand, and I actually have the slide ready. So how hard is it? Somebody asked this because you brought this up, Paul. How hard is it to maybe retrofit a big red 4D to get into those side heaters that you talked about?
And that's a trickier question. We are working on a kit to be able to retrofit those.
Okay.
I don't know where we are right now because there's some screwing involved where you have to drill in and screw to mount the side heaters underneath. I know when we first started toying with the idea of side heaters, we basically retrofitted our Big Red in the showroom to have side heaters. I know we're working on that right now. I don't know where exactly we are in that process.
Well, what we'll do is we'll keep in touch with you. And Francis asked the question, and we'll try to make sure to reach out, and he can also connect with us, and we'll see where it goes. But the fact that you're working on it is great news.
Also, I can speak to engineering and see just where they are in that process right now.
Perfect.
Super. Well, Roy, who's our senior technician and has trained a lot of folks who are probably watching this either live or on video. Roy said, and this is a question we hear, somebody gets a conveyor dryer and they're not a screen printer. They're not somebody that's used a conveyor dryer before. What's the best way? Where do I start? What's the best way to dial that dryer in for time and temperature? Where do we start?
I was gonna say I showed you that before. We send these out with all of our dryers as a starting point. Obviously, there's a lot of variables where things can change, but this is a good starting point. From there, that's where you'll dial it in. And I have it next to me. This is the tool that we use, a donut probe. So if you've never used a donut probe, I highly recommend getting them. The donut probes, maybe I think $150, $160. The thermometer, that's maybe another $100. So about $250 to $300 total. So worth the money. And I'll explain it real quick. So you have your donut probe. This is actually going to, if you can see the wires there, you're basically pushing the wires down into the ink. So you're making direct contact with the ink. because we want to measure the ink temperature, not just the surface temperature of using a laser gun. And we have this long heat-proof wire. At the end of this wire is where you'll plug it into your thermometer. Let me turn it on and maybe we can see. So if you look at that right now, 73 degrees, that's my room temperature. That's what it's reading right now. So as this goes through your dryer, it's reading the temperature every inch of the way because you can watch it. So what you'll normally like to see is similar to that chart that we had, where you see that temperature shoot up really quickly and then hold. Once you have that, you can say, you know what, I'm overshooting my temperature in the middle to about, it's getting to 360. That means, you know what, maybe I want to take that middle heater and drop it down a little bit. Maybe I'll adjust that zone 2 so it's not as hot. With your laser gun, all you can see is the temperature at the very beginning and the very end. You don't see what's going on in between. The donut probe tells you what's going on in between. On top of that, it's the most accurate way to read because you're reading the actual ink temperature. The temperature gun reads the surface temperature, which many times with a thick layer of ink, especially with a white underbase, it could be 50, 60, we've seen 100-degree difference between the donut probe and your temperature gun. So definitely the most accurate way. And this really, it's a really great way to get it dialed in. And it's the one thing I say, every person with the direct-to-garment dryer should have one of these in their shop. Just $250, you mess up one order and they wash out, this easily paid for itself.
Yeah, that's an insurance. That's a key tool to have.
Oh yeah.
I can hear Harry scratching inside of his head thinking, maybe we should have that and automatically include that with our dryers. What were you thinking, Terry?
I was thinking that it's probably going to be on our website by Friday.
Well, it's such an important tool. I mean,
absolutely. And many, if you're a screen printer, you may have one of these in your shop already to find that sweet spot where you reach ink film temperature for plastisol ink.
Yeah.
Love that.
Not only do you make sure you get a good temperature, but also it helps you optimize it. So you may be able to run it a little bit quicker than you originally like, oh, I'm going to put it in for 5 minutes just to be safe. You don't need to just be safe. If you figure out maybe you're running at 2.5 to 3 minutes. So now your 50 shirts an hour turns into 100 shirts an hour that dryer can cure.
So the three core variables here, Paul, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the expert, please. But the 3 core variables that I'm understanding is the time, the temperature, and the speed of the belt. That's really what we're working on. And then the height of the heater, that's what's going to adjust the temperature. And did I get it all right?
Your temperature adjustment will be a combination of your temperature and your heater height. Obviously, the farther away your heater is from the shirt, the cooler it'll be. So you may notice a spike in the middle. This is a three heater dryer. When you're looking at this one, you might say, you know what? Only the middle is getting hot. If I change my whole second zone, that means it's dropping the majority of the dryer. So you know what? Let me try raise that middle heater up 1/2 inch and see if I can level it out and get rid of that spike there. Same thing if you get a dip, maybe you want to bring it a little bit closer to avoid that dip in temperature. But if you're in that 300 to 320 degree range for the majority of your cure time, you don't have to worry about under curing or over curing your inks.
Well said. Well, we're always looking for the easy button, and I wish that there was one with these dryers. But it sounds like you've got kind of the starting point figured.
Yep.
But your recommendation is it's going to take some dialing. It's going to take some figuring. And Terry and I are big fans of testing and reassessing, and also not guessing. Let's use the data as a strength, as an insurance policy, so that we are confident that we're hitting those cure times and temps.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's not a one size fits all, because you might have very low humidity and hot in your shop, and I'm in Pennsylvania where in the summer we get 112% humidity, and you could feel the air and the moisture in the air. So obviously when you have that much moisture in the air, it absorbs into the shirts. Now you have to evaporate that moisture out of the shirts before you can cure the ink. So we need to know where our ideal time is. And it's not just, I said it once and I'm good, especially for the guys working in their garage where it's cold in the winter and it's hot in the summer. Every once in a while, it's good to check those times and temperatures to make sure you're still dialed in.
Or you're in Pennsylvania and all of a sudden the heat's on in the building, and so your humidity level drops down. So you're right.
It all changes.
Everybody's environment's different, so you have to adjust accordingly. So
how often, just curious, I can't help myself here. So how often would you be checking your dryer? Is that something you're going to do once a day, once a week, once a month? What's the routine?
I like to check it once a day, at least. When I get started, I will check my dryer. Even throughout the day, I might do a test print and check it because it warms up in your shop throughout the day. So I do like to check it occasionally. It doesn't hurt. I'd rather have a scrap shirt and make sure I have everything dialed in before I'm doing $30 hoodies, where if I mess one of those up, it's a pretty good expense. I've messed up enough shirts that I have a pile of scraps that I can test print and run through the dryer.
You have messed up a bunch of shirts? Did I hear that correctly?
I have. It's not really my fault, but I usually blame it on. I blame it because I'm a screen printer. I blame it on my automatic, because when you mess up one shirt, it's 10 shirts in by the time you realize there's a mistake. By the time it gets
right,
ready,
exactly.
It happens.
In my screen printing classes, I always say, and let me explain to you the term spoilage.
Yeah, you will mess stuff up. Nothing is 100%. So you have to be prepared for that.
Right.
That's great. Okay, last question that came through the chat. I'm not sure if this fits for what our needs are in DTG, but maybe they do. Is there any recommendation you can make about adding an air bar to the conveyor belt at the end, I assume, right?
Yep, air bar, and I don't know, can I spin it a little bit? You can see it at the back of the dryer, that little white guy there.
Yep.
The air bar, it's basically a bank of fans, small fans. So as your shirt's coming out of the dryer, it sits at an angle, so it'll actually cool your shirt as it comes out. So the nice thing is, maybe you want a little bit more infeed in your dryer. I could move this chamber up or back a little bit, so I have more infeed to lay out my shirts, and I don't need as much outfeed because I can cool those shirts down so they're not falling out of the back hot, or potentially folding over, sticking to each other, or maybe somebody's folding shirts at the end and their hands are a little sensitive. And if they're coming out at 250 degrees, by the time they grab them off the back, you start to feel that after a while. So the air bar is a great option. We have them for the 30, 54, 78-inch dryers. It's definitely a nice add-on to just cool down your shirts.
That's a great feature. Terry, have you seen that before?
I have not. It's a great idea, though, especially if you're doing polyesters and things like that.
That's what I was thinking. The
Definitely.
polys, cool off those polys so they're not falling on each other, and you get a little bonus dye migration that you weren't planning on.
Yep.
Well, this has been awesome. So listen, I've got all of the questions. If we keep going, I'm going to think of more, but I think, Terry, you look like you've got something cooking.
Well, I think this is an excellent question. The last one that just popped up in the chat.
Yep.
To confirm, does the dryer need to be vented out of the shop? And I do hear that question a lot.
We do recommend it. Now, most of what comes off, most of the fumes, is water vapor. It's mostly just moisture going into your shop. Obviously, when you're heat pressing, every time you heat press a shirt, there's nowhere for that to go then basically into your face when you pop that open. Mostly water vapor, but there's a few reasons why I like getting it out of the shop. One, it'll raise the humidity in your shop. So now your shirts want to absorb that moisture in the air that you're basically putting back into the air. If it's warm, it's nice to get that excess heat out of the shop.
Right.
Now, how a lot of the dryers are built, we circulate the air around the skin of the dryer and exhaust it out. So when it does leave the exhaust, it's under 100 degrees a lot of times. So even though we're running our dryer at 700-800 degrees, the air temperature coming out of that exhaust isn't terribly hot, but I'd still rather get it out of the building, just so in the summer your air conditioning unit's not working extra hard, just to keep it a constant temperature.
Right.
So, and we all know that heat could potentially be hazardous to your print heads. So get that heat out of the building. When we do exhaust it out, the only thing we recommend is, if you're going more than about 10 feet, depending on the dryer, put a booster on just to help pick up that air and help it flow out of the building. Get an inline fan, avoid 90-degree bends. So if you do need to go up and over, go up, do a 45, do another 45. So it curves it a little bit instead of just a 90 where you're getting air hitting a wall and then having to go and change direction.
Right.
So just little things like that will help. The flexible ducting, it'll kind of create turbulence in there because of the ridges. So smooth wall ducting will be a big help too.
Wow, lots of good advice there.
Great tips, great advice. Love it. Paul, thank you so much for your time. We spent the better part of the half hour really soaking up some new information. I just want to let everybody that's watching, let them know that they can visit our homepage, our website, equipmentzone.com. And under the DTG section, we have a whole page dedicated to the Vastex dryers. Everything from the little one to the big one, as I say, in fact, you guys have, really, calling them the little red and the big red and the, I don't know. Do you have mighty red? Do you have super red? What's the,
we need to figure out something, because some of our little reds, we have a 78-inch wide little red, which is actually bigger than our big red. So we need a middle red or something.
A middle red. I don't know, but I love it. Again, so here's a couple of photos just so people can get a sense for the configuration, the belt size, the widths, et cetera, and the different chambers. And the fact that I love you said that it's got that modular ability to it. So smart, engineered well, built to last, warranty, easy to fix, tech support. I could go on, but we don't have the time. So what I will do is wrap up, and I just want folks to know we appreciate their time today on this subject. Why you need a dryer, which dryer is right for me. I hope we've shed some light on that today. I think we have. And thank you, Paul, for being our special guest. If folks need more help, we're a click away. So like on your website, they can come to our website. They can start a tech ticket. If they have a question about their dryer, if they have a question about their F2100. And by the way, for those of you who are not yet our customers, we hope we're earning your business through trust and through a real relationship. But if you're an F2100 owner or an F3070 owner, or even if you have a legacy printer, F2000, and you're not sure where to go and you didn't get it from us, there's a high probability that we can help you out. So just check in with our tech support team and start a tech ticket. And like it says up there, we're a click away. And then this is something new, Terry. I'm still excited about this. It's been about now maybe 4 weeks, but we've decided to formalize training the easy way because we get so many questions and so many requests for people who bought their system from somebody else, but they're a little bit stuck, or maybe they hired a new employee and they need that second round of training. So we do have paid training. And as you can see from these photos, we have, it's almost, I would say it's almost like a photo studio in our showrooms, Terry. Think about it. Look at all those angles. We're covering it from top to bottom, both here in Arizona as well as in New Jersey. So you can go to our website and hit that training button, and you can see more information, get started, and start a form. And then Terry, why don't you take us home with this last slide? And of course, we want people to subscribe and go to our YouTube channel, which is where this content will be in about 48 hours. But if people are trying to get a hold of Paul, why don't you tell us a little bit about that? How can folks reach out to you if they need to?
So if they do need to reach me, obviously you can contact Vastex. Our sales at vastex.com is our main email address. We all see that. If you need me personally, call, ask for me. My email address, it's Zingone, Zingone at vastex.com. And anytime we can help, we'd be glad to help you, because obviously the more information you get, the better you're going to be as a printer. And that's what we like to see.
Love that. And then Terry, from our side of the street.
Yeah, obviously, equipmentzone.com. And if you can call us at 1-800-408-0040. And then on the screen, you see some of our sales reps and my email, Amy and Tim's email as well. And reach out, and we're happy to answer any questions you have.
Excellent information. Again, Paul, we appreciate your time. And thanks for the efforts that you put in. And we're so glad that you're refreshed back from your vacation and back from the trade show, and you're able to to get here. So it's been wonderful. Terry, any closing words before we say goodbye to our friend Paul?
No, thanks, Paul. Great information and lots of questions out there in the world about DTG and conveyor dryers. So I think you answered many of them and answered some of my questions as well. So we appreciate it, Paul.
All right. Thanks for having me. It's always great being here.
All right. Take care. And that's the wrap up for our which dryer should I be looking at? And of course, we know the answer to that. So thanks, Paul, again. And until we see each other at another show in the future, take care. And everybody else, this will be posted on our YouTube channel here in probably the next 48 hours. So signing off for now, it's Terry, it's Jay, and it's Paul. Take care, everybody.